These two winners received the Nobel Prize in Medicine yesterday for their work in mRNA that paved the way to the deadly COVID jabs. The press release heralding these recipients, praising Catalin Carrico and Drew Weissman, quote, for their discoveries concerning nucleoside-based modifications that enabled the development of effective mRNA vaccines against COVID-19. Now, note the mask they're wearing in these pictures. During his first reactions telephone interview, Weissman had this to say.
We've actually started a new group that includes people like Paul Offit and Ayla Stanford and many others to combat vaccine hesitancy and misinformation and disinformation. Because as important as the vaccine is, if you don't take it, it doesn't work.
Do you think the Nobel Prize will help in that fight?
Well, it's an interesting point. There's a large group of people who aren't sure, who hear these, crazy people spouting nutsy things about the vaccine, but they're not sure. And those are the people that still believe in science. And I think for those people, it will help.
Now, if you caught it, Weissman mentioned his new working group to combat vaccine misinformation that includes Dr. Paul Offit, who is an FDA advisor. That's particularly interesting given that just this week, Dr. Offit voiced his own mRNA vaccine hesitancy.
I didn't get last year's bivalent vaccine. I'm not getting this year's vaccine because I think I have high frequencies of T cells. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I would like the academic immunologists in concert with CDC epidemiologists to answer those questions. And we're going to find out about this vaccine over time. It is a novel strategy. We certainly were surprised by myocarditis and pericarditis, and we'll see whether or not over time, when we're 5 years into this, 10 years into this, 15 years into this, whether there's any evidence of residual myocardial disease. Because the reason you have myocarditis is you're making an immune response to your own heart muscle. I mean, it appears to be generally transient and short-lived, but there's invariably a spectrum of disease, and we'll find out about that over time.
This graphic included in the Nobel Prize announcement supposedly demonstrates how this modified RNA, in part developed by Weissman and Carrico, reduces inflammation. But back in 2018, Dr. Weissman himself issued a warning about potential mRNA vaccine toxicity that produced a hyperinflammatory response, which can trigger thrombosis. Dr. Peter McCullough noted the irony of the timing of this announcement, which coincided with a press release about an upcoming event he's a part of to discuss reports of DNA contamination of the mRNA jabs. And Dr. Peter McCullough joins us now. Dr. McCullough, it's kind of hard to watch, isn't it? These people continue to be rewarded as more people die, and the evidence further solidifies the overwhelming adverse effect of myocarditis. It's a bit like a slap in the face, wouldn't you say?
It's not the first time the Nobel Committee has really basically rewarded a horrible event in history. In 1949, the Nobel Prize was awarded to Ignaz Monitz for frontal lobotomy, which turned out to be a disaster in clinical psychiatry. The procedure made so many people neurologic vegetables, and it was finally abandoned. Just like the Nobel Prize being awarded for this modification of messenger RNA, the messenger RNA has been a disaster in the vaccine program. Do you know now the World Council for Health in 2022, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons in 2023, myself, in the U.S. Senate and European Parliament, we've all called for these vaccines to be removed from the market because they're not safe for human use. So we should not be celebrating the messenger RNA component of the vaccine. Ironically, what Carrico and Weissman's discovery is how to make the messenger RNA essentially indestructible in the human body. That's what's leading to so many complications, because we can't shut off the spike protein production, which is causing so much disease and disability.
Well, if that was their goal, Dr. McCullough, then I guess you can say they were successful, right? And that they did achieve something, even if it is nefarious. And I want to get to what Dr. Offit said in that interview on a podcast, I believe it was, in recent days, and then compare that to what Dr. Weissman had to say in 2018. In his work with mRNA, Weissman acknowledged the toxicity of the mRNA and the fact that there was a risk to thrombosis. And then now they're saying they're still trying to figure it out, but this is just further proof that they knew well in advance what this jab would do to people. Is that correct?
They knew somewhat about the hazards, but I listened to a tape on Weissman from 2018. He thought the new modified messenger RNA would last in the body less than a week. Now we have data from Castriuta. It's circulating in blood for a month. Rolkin and colleagues from Stanford found it stuck in lymph nodes for 2 months. And now recently, Crossan and colleagues from Harvard shows the messenger RNA is stuck in human heart muscle for at least a month, causing inflammation and damage, probably due to the spike protein. So Offit made the right clinical decision. I mean, no adult, no child would want to take this shot and suffer myocarditis. That's what Offit is worried about. But if Offit is worried about it enough for himself, why doesn't he express this concern for the rest of Americans in the nation? If the vaccine is not safe enough for Offit, it's not safe enough for anyone.
Well, supposedly, if Dr. Weissman is correct, he's working with Offit right now to counter misinformation that would lead to mRNA vaccine hesitancy. So it seems that Dr. Offit is caught in a position of contradiction.
It's true. Weissman and Carrico, they ought to be working on how we should get rid of the messenger RNA. We ought to have Nobel Prizes for treatment of COVID-19, reducing hospitalization and death, and now detoxifying the body of messenger RNA and spike protein. That's where the Nobel Prizes should go. It shouldn't go for extending the life of messenger RNA that's coding for a lethal protein devised in a biosecurity lab in Wuhan, China. The whole thing is now spinning out of control. This Nobel Prize is actually doing more damage to trust in science than anything else.
I would absolutely agree with that point. I want to get to something you just alluded to in the ongoing treatment and therapeutics for COVID-19. There is some debate about steroids, correct, to treat COVID-19. Dexamethasone is a drug that has been used repeatedly, and I hope you can clarify for us how often it's still prescribed in the treatment of COVID-19, but there's now some concern about it and the possible detrimental effects of dexamethasone. Now, as part of your protocol, Dr. McCullough, you promoted the use of prednisone, which is another common steroid. Can you tell us, are they still prescribing dexamethasone for COVID-19, and why or why not should it be prescribed for the treatment of the virus?
I never prescribed it as part. I've included it in the McCullough protocol because I know some countries may prefer it. Remember, the steroids are prednisone, methylprednisolone, dexamethasone, and budesonide. Of those, the real winners are prednisone, methylprednisolone, and budesonide. Dexamethasone is a short-term steroid. It's a glucocorticoid. It's not well balanced, and we never use it for other pulmonary conditions. People out there with asthma and other conditions know we rely on prednisone. It's the most balanced steroid, most tried and trusted steroid. So in the McCullough protocol, we always featured prednisone. I wouldn't encourage anyone to start using dexamethasone. Now, I don't think anybody's using it as an outpatient, but sadly, low-dose dexamethasone is still a standard in many hospitalized patients, and they suffer. They should be getting Solumedrol or prednisone.
That's good information for people to have just in case in the unfortunate event that they are hospitalized and they see that on their medication sheet. Real quick before I let you go, Dr. McCullough, you do have this DNA contamination event coming up. So could you just quickly fill us in on what we can expect from that and how people can tune in?
This is coming up on October 9th. The discovery by Kevin McKernan, Dr. Buckhalter in South Carolina, and other scholars across the world that the messenger RNA vaccines are contaminated with cDNA. It comes off the E. coli part of the manufacturing process, is very disturbing. There are no published reports of inspections of these vials for contaminants. You know, the FDA should be inspecting it. Pfizer, Moderna should be doing their own inspections. They should be producing good manufacturing procedure reports for Americans. None of this. In fact, independent investigators found the contaminated DNA. And you know the DNA sequences for? It sequences for a promoter used in E. coli called SV40 or simian vitis 40 promoter. It's also a known cancer promoter. So when these products like this are contaminated, they actually create a concern for oncogenesis or promotion of cancer. So this is not good. We need to have immediate reports done on these. You know, I've called for all the vaccines to be pulled off the market. It'd be safer to pull them off the market, inspect them, and figure out where things went wrong.
Yeah. Well, Dr. McCullough, we appreciate the work that you continue to do to try to expose these jabs and their adverse effects and advocate for better treatment. We appreciate as well you always joining us when you can.
Thank you.